as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tereir, in Truma, there's a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe, Loshen Admur Nishmas Eden in Truma, I think, which he wrote, there's two Maimerim like that in Chayisore, Tereir this week, and in Truma, that it says that the Alter Rebbe himself, Loshen Admur Nishmas Eden. So the Alter Rebbe brings over there an example. What is the inyan of Ze'er Anpin? I think he brings an example of a map. He says there's a map, and then there's a scale of the map. The scale tells you every inch is 500 miles, or less, or more, however the map is drawn. So he says, does this mean that that Begashmi is 1 inch is 500 miles? It's just on a scale, you have an inch is 500 miles. Every inch is 500 miles. But Begashmi is when a person actually has to drive, he has to drive 500 miles. HaMahalach. So the Alter Rebbe says the same thing is also the chilek between Ze'er and Arich. Ze'er Anpin and Arich Anpin. Ze'er Anpin, that's the counter, the attributes, the spheres that are in Atzilus, are in the format of Ze'er, a miniature form. It's like a map which is drawn in a very condensed way. Then it comes to reality. It comes to Arich Anpin. This is when he really has everything in front of him, and that's when he sees how much he really has to go. So B'meila, this is the chilek between Ze'er and Arich. So this is all Ze'er and Arich, but then there is a level in Keser which is even higher than that yet. Okay, so before we get to that, it's Azay. Arich means that it's long. Long is in contrast to something that's short. As you mentioned earlier, long in quantity, long in quality. He learns the halacha with a depth, with a background. It's completely a different halacha, a different picture in front of him. Then there is a higher level yet in Keser. That level is completely not related to Ishtalshalus, and that is called Atik. Netak v'nivdal. It's completely removed from Seder Ishtalshalus. So this is, both of them are makifim. Keser is considered a Keser, a makif. It encompasses, it surrounds a person's head, it's on the person's head. But you have Arich, which is a makif, and then you have a higher level of makif, the level of Atik. It's called Netak. V'nivdal, it's separated, removed from Ishtalshalus, because there's no other word used. And to even mention more, there's something which the Mittel Rebbe mentions in a famous Maimer. The Mittel Rebbe was arrested. He said Maimorim in prison, every Shabbos. The Chassidim of the Mittel Rebbe, by them, the whole life was saying Maimorim. So they asked if they can have permission to say, the Mittel Rebbe has permission to say Maimorim. So they asked the doctor, who was very close, Dr. Habenthal, Professor Habenthal. He was very close with the Mittel Rebbe, and they asked him if he can say Maimorim, if they can come into to Minyan. He looked at them like wild. But he didn't give them in any way any hint that he's going to discuss it with any authorities. A few days later, he gives over to Chassidim. We got permission to have a minyan. A minyan is, I think, 20 people a minyan, 3 times a day. And we also have permission for a Maimer Shabbos, not more than 50 people. In jail, 50 people come to hear the Mittel Rebbe every Shabbos a Maimer. They immediately, Chassidim didn't lose any time, it was a Friday, they immediately made a gadol who had the first 20 going in for Mincha of Shabbos. And that's how they continued for a few weeks. Mittel was arrested, Isrochak, Simchas Torah. And then, every Shabbos he said a Maimer. Parsha Vayetze, he received the news, it was on his birthday, which later became also his Ilula the next year. He received the news that he's free. He sat down by Mincha, before Mincha, and he said a Maimer Ato Echad. The Maimer was printed by the Rebbe in 1965, early 65. The Maimer the Rebbe said then also a few years earlier, and he printed it then. It's printed today in the Maimore Admur Amtsoi Kontreisim. That's where the Maimer is printed. Akoponim.
How long was he in jail for?
He's in jail from Parsha Neach, in the middle of Parsha Neach, till Vayishlach. Till Vayishlach. Yeah. He's sitting there till Yud Kislev. Yud Kislev Sunday he left prison. So what happened was, Mincha, he said a Maimer. In the middle of the Maimer, he said, and this is what the Rebbe said in Tov Shalom at Beis, 72, the Rebbe said, that the Mittel Rebbe said in the middle of the Maimer, Pnu Mokim der Tatida. Make place, my father is here. The Alter Rebbe came also. As in Shomei, he says, he couldn't see him Begashmis. Okay, Poshet came to the Maimer. And the Rebbe explains why is it that the Alter Rebbe came to the Maimer. Because the Mittel Rebbe is the attribute of Bina. The Alter Rebbe is the attribute of Chachma. Chachma, Bina are considered two friends that never separate. Trein, Rein, the Lamis Parshan. So therefore, by the Geula of the Mittel Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe came. Then noch another Dvar Pele. Meret Shein, there noch a Dvar Pele. In the Yem of Yud Kislev, the Rebbe writes a Peledik Azach. And it's Peledik. That the Alter Rebbe said the first part of Tanya, it took him 4 years, he would say it in the format of Maimorim. First he gave Eitzes in Yechidas, Lekuti Eitzes, that's what the union of Tanya is, Tanya Kadisha, the Alter Rebbe writes it in the Akdam introduction to Tanya. Then it says that Erev Rosh Hashanah Tov Kuf Nun, the first Rosh Hashanah, that's Tzemach Tzedek's birth, a day after he was born, the Alter Rebbe said the first Maimer, Tanya, B'Seif Perik Gimel Denida. Mashbi and Eisa, started to say the Maimer. And for the next 4 years, he would say the Maimorim, the Prokim, and then he completed it on Tes Kislev, and then he says an interesting word, Tes Kislev, says, Ula Macharase, he finished Perik Nun Gimel. Yud Kislev. So the question is, Meila Tes Kislev, Mittel Rebbe's Yemeledes. So he started by his grandson's birth, and he completed on Mittel Rebbe's Yemeledes, the Mittel Rebbe's birthday. Yud Kislev, Taf Kuf Nun Dalet, what happened then? The Geula was 33 years later from the Mittel Rebbe. The Mittel Rebbe was redeemed 33 years later. Muzman Zogen, which is very obvious, it must be said, that the Alter Rebbe was already Merames, the Geula of the Mittel Rebbe. Because the Mittel Rebbe's redemption was 33 years later. And the Alter Rebbe chose this day, the 10th of Kislev, to complete saying the Tanya, the first part. So we must say that this was already connecting to the Geula of the Mittel Rebbe. The Fratnach al Pichsidos, that the Mittel Rebbe, what did the Alter Rebbe discuss in the Peirik, the last Peirik, is discussing the union of Bayis Sheni. Bayis Rishon, the difference between the first Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash, which is also connected with the Oves. And as the Rab Leivik writes, that the Mittel Rebbe is connected with Yitzchak, with the second one of the Oves. And that's why by him everything's union of Gvura. That's why the Svarim are called Chayim, Teras Chayim, Derech Chayim, all in Yonim connected with the union of Chayim, which is connected with Elikim Chayim, the union of Gvura, as the Mittel Rebbe writes in a letter. So B'chol Eifim, getting back to the Maimer itself. So the Mittel Rebbe says in this Maimer Ato Echad, why is Atik referred to as Atik? Because it is Neta Kemeshamatik Mesefer El Sefer. It's like someone is writing over, copying from one sefer to another. What is being copied in this part of the chain of creation? What is being copied is that the Eibishter is taking something from God high and is accomplishing that it should be in the position where Atik should be. So, according to this explanation, Atik is not something that's removed from the chain of creation. It's the other way. It's coming from the other way. He is taking something from very high and he just brings it down. It should remain in that position. But there's no change in it. It's kimatik mesefer lesefer. Like writing over from one sefer to another. In today's world, it's called copy and paste. Copy and paste, you're not making any changes. You're just moving it from one place to another. The same thing is kimatik mesefer lesefer, what took place by Atik. He took the Atik as it is higher and he just brought it down lower. So therefore, Atik is more representing the higher level of chain of creation, and not the lower level that follows, not Atzilus, and not even Kesed, Arich, because it is. You can't even say that it's removed from Ishtalshalus, because it's not even in the range of Ishtalshalus. Like we mentioned earlier, you can't say it's so deep we can't feel it. Feeling and intellect are two different worlds. The same thing here also. You can't say on Atik that it's removed because it was never in relationship to world. It is something which is higher and it was just moved down to a position where it's now. But even as it is now, it is a copy of the higher. And therefore it represents the higher. Al derech, like as mentioned, copy and paste. Nothing else. You're not doing anything. No, you're not editing. You're not changing anything. It's the same meaning as it is Lamaila. So b'meila, what atik is, it's completely not even within the range